I've had the opportunity to scale this e-commerce brand right here to $345,215 every single month in revenue and repeat these numbers over and over again for the past 6 months. And in this video, I want to reveal every single thing we did with this brand from scratch, not only to achieve this level of scale, but to maintain it long term. And it's going to be a massive video packed with a lot of value because I'm going to be revealing it in a case study format, essentially through this little image and this overview that I have right here. We're gonna be going over things such as how we approach this brand, how we started working with it, the main foundational issues which your brand may also have, and so much more. But with that, let's get right into it. So how to scale your brand to 345,000 a month in revenue at a 4x ROAS and beyond, because this brand was running at a 4x ROAS during that time. Right now that has increased to about an 8x ROAS. So this strategy not only increases your revenue, but it also goes and takes your return on ad spend to the very next level. Now, one thing I want you to understand before we begin any of this: scaling is an art. Scaling an e-commerce brand is literally an art, which if mastered can change your life. And you already know this because you probably already have a brand that's doing decent numbers. But unfortunately, the main issue is this: most e-commerce brand CEOs and CMOs lack the true knowledge that they need to truly take an e-commerce brand to the next level, especially with Google Ads. Here's what I mean. If you have found yourself clicking mindlessly around the Google Ads dashboard, but you're not really sure how to decipher these results or which numbers to even be focusing on, you may fall under this category of CEOs and CMOs. But don't worry, by the end of this video, that's gonna change for you. Now, this e-commerce brand during the months of 2021 and 2022 was actually doing decent numbers. It did about $6.4 million in revenue, and that's because it had just started to find some success on Facebook. It's a liquor brand. Liquor is very popular, doesn't matter what platform you use. So because of that, they were already finding decent numbers, but they wanted to expand onto Google Ads. But here's the thing: if you fall under this group of CEOs and CMOs which I mentioned earlier, don't worry at all. I was in the same position back in 2018, because what I used to do back in then, I'll be completely honest with you, I had no idea or no clue how Google Ads actually even worked. So what I used to do is I used to click around different buttons. I used to click around on different charts, try to make these fancy graphs, try to make these fancy reports, thinking I was making a dent. But all I was doing was just mindlessly trying to make it seem like I was doing work. And this all came to my attention when I saw the profit and loss statement at the end of each month during that time period. I mean, to give you perspective, I was literally living off of credit card points during that time, because my margins for my e-commerce brand, despite doing $100,000, $200,000 a month back in 2018, it was barely providing $2,000 to $5,000 a month of profit, which was nowhere close to where I wanted to be. So that's kind of the same thing I saw happening with this e-commerce brand, where although these numbers looked amazing, the margins behind the scenes were completely different. And this was mainly because there was no type of Google Ads scale for this brand. Remember, this brand was heavily going all in on Facebook ads because they had done 6.4 million in the year of 2022. And when we started working with them, which was basically in the middle of 2023 or roughly around June, they had only one main goal in mind. They wanted to 2x during 2023 and then keep on improving the results in 2024. So during 2023, we got to work essentially. And the main reason from what I saw overall after speaking to this e-commerce brand CEO was there was a lot of confusion with how their overall strategy was. I mean, if we go back in time with this brand all the way back to 2022, we can see just how things were laid out here. I mean, there was really no direct approach in place. Things were running, but they were not running as they should be. And as a result, the conversion tracking was completely off. It was telling they were doing $250,000 from Google. However, during that time, there was a lot of double and triple reporting. So these numbers, they were completely off during that time. And their ROAS, as you can see here, it was barely a 2x to a 4x, but it was all leading to a bunch of different confusion. And we started working with this brand in the middle of June of 2022. So roughly during this time is when we came in and we started to work on this brand. And one thing you want to understand is during that time, the CEO was taking care of all of his Google Ads related stuff, and he was doing 10 different things at once. So it was no surprise why their Google Ads side of things was a mess. First issue was they had a lot of inconsistency inconsistencies where one day there would be $3,000 in revenue, as you see right here. The very next day there would be barely $400 in revenue, and this was just kind of a repeated kind of thing which they were seeing on and on and on. And that's why one month they would barely do around 40-50,000 in revenue. Again, this was double track, so it's half of this. And then next month they would seem like it was going up, and then all of a sudden it would go back down. So they had no idea what was going on. The product feed, the first thing I noticed, was a complete mess, because this is a liquor brand, and usually with liquor brands there's a lot of policy violations, product disapprovals, etc. you have to take care of, which they had no idea what to do about them. So they just let them run in the background, thinking if the problem could be ignored, then it would just fix itself, which was a very bad strategy. But essentially, coming to the actual Google Ads strategy, there was nothing in place. It was non-existent. It was essentially, during that time, if we go back during this time, what they had was they had a bunch of different campaigns running. They had a bunch of different campaigns spending money, but it was a bunch of random search campaigns. As you see right here, these are all long gone by now, but they were a bunch of search campaigns barely providing any returns. 1.41x ROAS, 0.18x ROAS, and it was just all over the place because the owner, again, they were just testing and testing, thinking that's the way to succeed. And then to top it off, with all of those policy violations and the Google Merchant Center just flagged by them, it was a real big issue because just the entire foundation was creating havoc within the ad account. There was nothing that was working, and they were just basically burning the money that they were pushing to these ads. So that was what I saw initially, and from that point on, I knew this brand had a lot of potential because it's a liquor brand. I mean, a liquor brand is one of the most popular products in the world, and not even just in the US. So I knew it was time for a change, and that's when we began our strategic overview of our plan and how to approach this. So it doesn't matter if it's this brand or any other brand I work with, we always begin from the ground up, the foundation up. And this is because launching and optimizing campaigns, that's the easy part. If you work with a media buyer, if you have an internal team member who's launching campaigns and that's all they do, you need to fire them immediately, because this is one of the easiest things which you personally can do yourself. It's nothing too crazy. What is the hard part is ensuring the base, the foundation is strong enough to support this scale. And when I say foundation, e-commerce brand owners, they always get confused with this. They think foundation is what the strategy is within your campaigns, what campaigns you launch. Is it performance max versus standard shopping? And yes, that is part of the foundation, but that's not the only thing. The main part of the foundation is what you see here on the product listing side of things. So things such as the product images, product titles, the pricing of your product, how is it compared to your competitors, the Google Merchant Center promos and reviews. These are all the things that make up your brand's identity. And here for this brand, we began work by fixing the product disapprovals first and foremost by changing up things such as product titles, key product identifiers, because those product identifiers you see in the back end within the Merchant Center, they tell the algorithm what you sell, if it's legal, not legal, etc. And even the images, those are all things we had to work with, because the problem here was Google was thinking of these products as illegal, even though this brand had a license to sell liquor within the United States. So that's one major issue we kind of started off by fixing, because we knew the campaigns were not really the major issue as much as the foundation itself was. And during this process, as we were working through the foundation, we also worked on improving the conversion tracking setup to get better data coming in, because like I mentioned, these numbers we saw here, they were double and triple tracked. So there was not a month they were doing 250,000 from Google. It was a lot of it coming from Facebook, when instead they were doing was roughly half of this from Google. They just didn't know about it. But one key thing which helped the most, I believe, during our initial journey with this brand was the Google Merchant Center and improving the product feed. Because once the product feed was improved in terms of proper SEO techniques, so we literally had to spend time doing keyword research and then optimizing the product titles with the right kinds of SEO keywords, techniques, etc. to first of all get rid of these product disapprovals, but second, rank the products with a better approach, with a better technique. But once all of these things were done, the images were on point in terms of the CTRs, because we really focused heavily on the CTRs. That's why you see the CTRs now, they're above 2% for a lot of these products. But essentially that brought us to the strategy side of things, the strategy phase. And here we like to go through three different kind of distinctive phases. First one is the strategy creation phase. Second one is the warm traffic insertion phase. And then the third one is the hot traffic insertion phase. Now, the strategy creation, what we like to do during this time is we like to understand what's our main goal behind the strategy. Is it just to do retargeting with Google, or is it to now go in and actually get a lot of cold traffic? For this brand, what we wanted to do is we wanted to incorporate a little bit of retargeting and through warm and hot traffic first, because this brand had a lot of data and good data coming from Facebook ads. And keep in mind, because conversion tracking issues were present for a large portion of the presence of this brand on Google, and we knew we could not just launch a bunch of search campaigns again like the CEO had done before, because this strategy was not working and it was just leading to a bunch of mixed results. So instead, what we did is we launched the 2-2 launch strategy, which is 2 Google shopping campaigns. In this case, it was 2 performance max campaigns and then 2 Google search campaigns. So one search campaign was for retargeting purposes, so a brand search campaign, and then another one was a dynamic search campaign, because all we wanted to do was we wanted to get a bunch of cold traffic data coming in, but then use that brand search campaign to get some retargeting coming in to further use for the cold traffic campaign. So that's essentially how we started with this brand, a fairly simple setup, which we decided on based on the extensive data the ad account already had. And I know I said that it's not good data, but it's still some data. But this is where most e-commerce brands go wrong. Instead of asking themselves key questions like what kind of traffic flow we are missing, or is profitability the main goal right now, or is it something else, or what does our brand need more of right now, they go in and they launch a bunch of random campaigns, bunch of random shopping, search, demand gen, etc., just hoping something works. And for the brands we work with to scale to these levels, we are always asking a form of these kinds of 3 questions, because once we understood with this liquor brand that it didn't need brand awareness, that wasn't the main goal here, since they were already an 8-figure brand, we got this cold traffic / retargeting traffic strategy in place. And this eventually led us to the optimization phase, because keep in mind, once we launched back in June of last year, we started seeing a little bit of traction coming in, and that too very good traction. I mean, in the month of July of 2023, roughly $33,000, and these were real numbers. We made back $170,000. This was the beginning of something very big, and we knew that even at the start. So we kind of quickly moved it into the optimization phase. And one major issue that I see e-commerce brands make is falls into 2 different categories, which is they either optimize too frequently or they barely optimize, and both lead to a devastating downturn in revenue and profitability, as we see right here. I mean, over time it's just gonna go down, because the Google Ads algorithm needs consistent data to continue working, to continue improving. And the solution here is to take an approach that's based on real proven techniques, which right after spending over $50 million in Google Ads, we realized one thing: optimizing on a set schedule, whether that's every 5 to 7 days or 7 to 14 days, is more important than the change you make, because no matter how bad of a change it is, within 5 to 7 days, maximum 14 days, you should have a clear idea of what's working and what's not working. And after that, then you can go in, make a few more changes, make the algorithm better, etc. But do it more frequently and the campaign's algorithm truly begins to struggle. And on the other side, do it less frequently and the bad products and keywords begin to eat up the budgets. It's like parasites within your campaigns, which you need to consistently be getting rid of. So you need to be consistently taking your antibiotics and making sure you kill off the germs, which is what we do with optimization. But in terms of the actual optimization strategy here, we framed our approach based on the campaigns we had running. So during the start, when we really started scaling this brand, we only were more focused on those PMAX and those 2 search campaigns which we initially launched. But with the Performance Max campaigns, the optimization was more related to the back end. So things like going into the inside section, excluding products, and just making sure that we take all the keywords which are generating revenue and putting them into the back end within the Google Merchant Center, and so on and so forth. Because the main goal here was to incorporate them into product titles and descriptions to make the entire funnel much stronger, because this now led us to the search campaign side of things. With search, we actually had a little bit more room to play around with, because with all the data coming in, we began further optimizing the ad copies of those search campaigns, and with this went with the appropriate keywords that were getting the most tractions. And in essence, what we did was we targeted newly ranked keywords within ad groups. We did things such as excluding irrelevant and overspending keywords within those as well, And most important of all, we started A/B testing between product landing pages versus collection pages. I mean, during that time from June 18 to July 18 for this brand, you can see things were really starting to take off. We had grown this brand by 82% in revenue at a 120% almost increase in the total ROAS. And with these numbers, I mean, it was pretty obvious we were now in the scaling phase. You may agree with this that scaling is often the most sought after phase when it comes to Google Ads. I mean, what's the point of running an e-commerce brand if you cannot scale it to the very next level to very big revenue numbers? And the unfortunate thing about this though is that it's also one of the easiest phases to mess up. So these are some potential ways scaling can be screwed up. I see this still right now, even for the brands we work with under my Google Ads agency or marketing, which by the way, if you run a brand doing $50,000 or more per month in revenue and you want to scale to the very next level with Google Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see essentially how we can work together and make that happen. But one of the easiest ways to mess up scaling is to increase budgets too often or increase bids too often. Second way, launching a bunch of meaningless campaigns. I mean, this is literally one of the key problems I see so many e-commerce brands face. They think launching stuff is what leads to revenue and what leads to growth. It's far from the truth. But third way, brands think excluding and optimizing products often is ideal. It's not. It's gonna just lead you down the wrong rabbit hole. But unnecessary things which create no real impact or growth is what these three things essentially do. And the main approach we took here instead to make sure we don't make any of those three mistakes was we kind of it consisted of two major parts. But one of the main goals here during this phase was to generate more sales via cold traffic campaigns, because if you remember, I mentioned earlier we were going heavily into retargeting, and by this time those campaigns were providing results, but now we need to expand the horizons and now start going after more and more cold traffic, because the number one, foundation had been fixed, and number two, we had enough data coming in from retargeting already to now use that to find more cold traffic audiences. So here what we found out is that those search campaigns that we launched initially were not doing the best, so we kind of shut them off, and instead we started going after dynamic search campaigns. Those were during that time working the best. I mean, if we see right here, it was running at an 8x ROAS, which was one of the highest after, you know, of course, the brand search campaign. But essentially what this did is this reduced the guesswork we were doing and got the algorithm on our side, because now we were letting the algorithm decide which landing pages to send traffic to with the dynamic search campaign. And that's where now when things were working, we started the scaling phase aggressively. We were increasing budgets by 10% to 25% every 5 to 7 days. We wanted to keep scaling in a fairly short time period. We didn't want to go beyond 7 days. We didn't want to do it earlier than 5 days, but we kept things simple and easy. And one thing you want to understand is naturally as the algorithm gets more data and becomes smarter, it starts to find more and more of the ideal customers. But besides these two approaches and the ongoing optimizations, we literally did nothing else. That was pretty much it. I mean, if we look right here, we were able to scale the PMAX and the shopping campaign, which was a catch-all campaign along with the dynamic search, all the way up to $500 to $1,000 a day. And that was all this account needed in terms of the right structure and the right foundation to now get to this level where we're spending $1,500 a day in ad spend on a PMAX, but in total for the other ones it adds up to $2,600 on a given day. I mean, we don't spend that much on a daily basis. We spend roughly $1,400, but even then at this level in the 30-day period, we are able to easily scale to a 7x, 8x ROAS at a $341,000 in revenue. And this brand has exploded to the very next level. And I mean, if we look right here on the Shopify backend side of things, we're up 37% compared to January 1st to April 24th of last year of 2023. And it's already done $3.2 million in revenues. And it's just April right now. It's not even half the year yet. So this year, we're looking to scale up to that $10 million range with just the increases and the strategy that we are implementing here and the scaling we continue to do. I mean, right now we're just running on barely 6 campaigns, generating 300 to 500,000 in any given month. So this goes to show you how simple approaches work the best and how you don't need to be complicating the process by adding too many different things. But with that being said, if you run a brand doing 50,000 or more per month in revenue, I want to help your brand scale to levels like these with Google Ads. So go onto my website and get a free audit where I will go inside your ad account and basically note down all the problems in the account and potential solutions absolutely free. And then you can decide based based on the audit if you would rather have us helping you with your e-commerce brand or not. But again, euromarketing.com, and I hope to see you on the other side. But check out this video right here on our top 5 performance max campaign strategies, which we also used here for this brand to scale to the next level.